Good evening and welcome to the Monday, April 9, it is April 9, right? April 9, 2018 Board of Education meeting. Please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all.
There are three sets of minutes. One is the regular March 12, 2018 meeting. One is the special meeting that we had on March 19 to implement some budget cuts ordered by the Board of Finance, and then the workshop meeting for March 26. Is there a motion to approve the March 12 regular meeting minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Corrections, changes, additions, clarifications? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, and then March 19, is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Any changes, corrections? That was to act on the reductions. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
And I'm sorry, I abstain. I was not at the meeting.
Okay. And then March 26th, that was our workshop meeting where we met with the teachers to talk about items of mutual concern. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any changes? Okay.
I do as well.
Okay. 2 abstentions on that, but all in favor otherwise?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, and Mr. Sands and Ms. Sullivan abstaining. Okay, item 4 on the agenda is public forum for topics on the board agenda. Anybody? No? Okay. I was the reviewer of expenditures for the month. We did talk about it in the Operations Committee meeting. There were no real significant surprises. We are still projected to be at the end of the year within our appropriated budget. There are obviously still lots of moving pieces, and we don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but we are there. The bottom line is there were no major surprises, and we did go through the warrants, the 15 pages worth of bill payments, and so it would be my motion that we approve the expenditures for the month of March in the amount of $6,426,239.98.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And then when is the Board of Finance meeting? Is it next Monday?
I think
Is it even?
the one after us.
Okay, so I'll plan on going to that then. Communications. Did people get communications that you'd like to talk about now? The only one I think I'd like to just mention is that we did get I got some emails anyway talking about how Guilford Lakes responded to the issue relating to somebody in the parking lot who didn't belong there, perhaps, and really thanking with 3 different comments that I thought were all really useful. One is how professionally the police responded to the incident. And I guess just to be clear, there was a phone call by a parent who saw somebody in the parking lot who she believed didn't belong there, and she was right. And she got in touch with authorities, and the police responded almost immediately to it. We're not able to find the fellow at that time, but ultimately did and I'll mention Officer Shove specifically because I think she did a fabulous job from what I'm told in terms of investigating it and found out who it was, and it was somebody who had a vehicle of some sort that was left in the parking lot overnight, and then the police impounded it, and he was trying to figure out where his vehicle was, and so, but everybody did everything right is the bottom line in terms of the police. Also, I think the school administration was highlighted as having done a very good job making sure that the school went into a soft lockdown and kept the instructional day moving forward. And then also Dr. Freeman, and I'm just going to mention it because he really kept information flowing, and I think parents, at least this email that I got, said that the parents were really grateful for making sure that he kept everybody, and Laurie Hahn kept everybody up to date in terms of what was happening, and because it's something that, look, parents want to know, and so he did a good job on that. So And I should mention, by the way, Dr. Freeman isn't here this evening. He is at a conference of an educational foundation in Chicago, and so Dr. Keene will be presenting the superintendent's report tonight. And Linda Trudeau is also not here this evening, but Mr. Bowden is prepared to answer any financial questions that we didn't already talk about in operations. So, any other communications? Okay. Then we are up to student representatives.
So from A.W. Cox, they held parent-teacher conferences on Thursday the 5th and Friday the 6th. Also, there will be a Cox Spirit Day on Friday, April 27th, in which students have been encouraged to show their school pride. From Calvin Leet, over 50 Calvin Leet school students and one principal performed at the annual variety show last Friday night. There was a variety of talent on display, from singers, dancers, musicians, gymnasts, comedians, and even a hula hoopster. The students showed their confidence as they performed for a sold-out crowd in the school gymnasium. And also, Calvin Leet School raised over $6,000 during March for the readathon for Sarah.
At Baldwin Middle School, SBAC testing, which is language arts testing, is wrapping up. And so far, the testing has gone quite well. There is a STEM fair going on, part of an enrichment block, where students on Team 6E are participating in a science fair to answer a science-related question that they might have. They're also working, Team 6 West is also working on a Hidden Figures project where they research the life and work of a person of color and how they contributed significantly to the world. On March 15th, Baldwin hosted a Fill the Bleachers event for the Unified Sports Middle School, or for the Unified Sports program at the middle school for a basketball game, where nearly 300 students were there to support their team. And for community days, Baldwin Middle School has held 4 so far, with focuses in courage, gratitude, and compassion. Now from Adams Middle School, the Walk for Water event hosted on March 29th. Students were able to raise over $3,500 with a variety of different fundraisers. Adams Middle School also received the ExxonMobil Education Grant, which will be used to study fish and genetics of fish, and donated were goldfish, genetically modified goldfish, and aquariums so they could be held. And then upcoming in June, the counselors will be working with 8th grade students to prepare them for the transition from 8th grade to the high school. And from the high school, the last week of intramural volleyball is going on currently, and the finals will take place on the 13th during school with a pep rally. Mo Pleasure was the first person to be inducted into the Guilford High School Arts and Sciences Hall of Fame, and we're very excited to have that, and will be on display on the 2nd floor. And for the Guilford High School musical, School of Rock, tickets are now available, and they will be through the week before April 28th.
Also at the high schools, the seniors have been making their college choices over the past week, and Brennan will be attending Monmouth University and will be pursuing a degree in music industry. And currently Dorcas is touring schools in California, Minnesota, and Massachusetts, and will be making her decision soon. Spring sports are now in full swing. Baseball is 1-1 and won against Lyman Hall 5-0. Boys lacrosse is also 1-1 with their win coming over Glastonbury. Girls lacrosse is 3-0 with wins against Morgan and Sheehan. Girls tennis is also 3-0, and boys tennis is 2-0 to start their seasons. Also, the first international night was held on Thursday, April 5th. It was very successful, and students from all grades gave presentations on different countries ranging from Japan to Cuba to Egypt. Also, juniors recently took the Connecticut SAT and NGSS test, which were difficult, but they felt they performed well. And lastly, AP tests are coming up from May 6th through the 8th, so we will be preparing for those.
Terrific. Any other questions? Well, congratulations on the college choice. That's exciting. Is nobody going to ask what's music industry?
So music industry is a combination of music production, working in studio, and half of it is a degree in business, basically, working in entrepreneurship, finance, and management.
Excellent.
Terrific. Well, it sounds great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Congrats.
Any other questions or thoughts? Okay, well, thank you, and you're free to either stay or go and prepare for your AP test, or
Thank you.
whatever else it is.
Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Keene is here in Dr. Freeman's stead and is going to talk to us about summative assessment updates.
So I'll just build on Noah and Brendan's comments that we are in the middle of summative assessment season, and the high school did participate in the Connecticut SAT Day on March 21st. We were very lucky because that was the early release day, and so the vast majority of our students were able to test. Those students who were absent and the students who had some extended time accommodations will be taking the makeup test on April the 24th or the 25th. All other schools have started their summative testing with the exception of Cox and Adams, and they're starting tomorrow. Baldwin actually is almost finished with the language arts portion of the assessment. They started a little bit early. They were trying some new scheduling so that students weren't testing all day, only within their language arts class, and then when they do the math test, they're only going to do it during their math class. And they felt like that was really positive. Each school has designed a schedule that they believe will be most productive for their students without really taking on a lot more of their day, so that it's more natural. We also talked a little bit last year about when we were talking about our scores, talking a little bit about test fatigue and perhaps the way we were scheduling. And so this year we are scheduled to do most of the language arts before spring break. Then we're going to take spring break off, and the week after spring break off, then we're going to come back and do the math the very end of April and the 1st of May, hopefully to say, okay, we're going to have first-time experiences without fatiguing the students. And we're able to do that given the window that we have. So that's where we are. I'm very pleased. I've observed in every building. And I'm very pleased with the seriousness that the students are taking it, and with the ease of the technology. It's become much, much more natural than it has in the past, and things are going very well. So we are doing it now, and everything seems to be going very well.
Questions? Comments? When do you expect scores?
Well, certainly, if any student is having a hard time, then they should have that discussion with the teacher and or with their guidance counselor and the principal. Certainly for students.
He doesn't self-advocate very well.
Okay. I'm sure.
Well, any parent is certainly free to meet with the principal
Absolutely.
or meet with a teacher, and would certainly encourage people to do that.
Absolutely.
That is an expectation that if there is some issue, and obviously there are 3,300 kids in our district, and there are going to be some that have that it's easier than others, and I know that from experience within my own household, and so.
For some reason, he's having a really hard time.
Okay. Well, I certainly encourage anybody who would like to get some assistance from a teacher or the principal to just give the principal a call. I would be very surprised if there wasn't some attention paid to it. So, when would results would you expect?
Last year, we received the results June the 25th. I'm hoping that we will have them about that time.
Yeah, and one of the problems has always been that to the extent that you're trying to figure out something to do in the fall, if you don't get them until
Yeah.
just before school starts, it's not that helpful.
Right. We were very pleased last year to get them that early. We do get SAT a little bit earlier than that. It goes to students first through the College Board, their College Board accounts, and then the Smarter Balanced assessments and the alternate assessments usually come around somewhere in the end of June, which is much better than August or September, which was in the old CMT days.
Which is when the parents actually get them, though,
Yeah,
right?
the
So
individual
the
parent
district
reports,
just aggregate
usually
data.
right
Yeah.
at the beginning of school,
Right.
we send those home, because if they come during the summer,
Right, right.
Dr. King, would you remind me how, so if I recall correctly, these are tests for which kids may take the time they need to
That's
complete
correct.
them. So let's say the language arts testing is happening in English class and half of the kids are done, or 3/4 of the kids are done. What is the process for allowing kids to finish in time and then giving other kids, or is that kind of a school-dependent
it
decision?
really is,
Okay.
because, and when I said that they were doing that at Baldwin,
I'm sorry, okay.
all right, at the elementary, there's much more flexibility,
Of course. Right.
across the school day. But what they're doing at Baldwin is they do have Miss Deere, the library media specialist, is taking care of those students who need additional time or who haven't completed yet. It is an untimed test. Kids can take as many breaks as they like.
Right.
So they can take their time.
So they
and we
figured
don't-
out, right, how
Yeah,
to
and so they
accommodate
figure it
everybody.
out.
Terrific.
Can you give me an example of when you get the results? As you mentioned, you got them at the end of June, and that was helpful. What would be an example of how you might make some alteration, some change in terms of the curriculum or in terms of the learning experience?
Well, it varies, but basically we look at, okay, how did a grade level do compared to how a grade level did the year before? Knowing that that's two different groups, but we can kind of look at instruction that way. If, for example, we might look at a particular strand of mathematics, like geometry, in the 6th grade, and because we said, oh, we didn't do so well in that area the year before. Did we do better in 6th grade this year because we really had an emphasis on that, in our curriculum? Now, I'm just speaking off the top of my head. At the same time, we can look at how the students did from year to year. So we might say, okay, this is how the student did in grade 6. Let's see how the student did in grade 7. And so we can go back and look at those. So we look from student to student and look across years, as well as looking at grade level performance with different cohorts of students, just to think about instruction. And then we also use that to say, okay, we did very well here. We were really focusing on this area. Now do we have another area? Now what do we need to focus on for the following year? That's just a few examples.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, thank you. Then the board agenda is item 9. 9.1 is to act on personnel items. There are two, ratify the resignations of Michael Barron and Robert Scopper, both science teachers at Guilford High School. Is there a motion to ratify those resignations?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Can I ask a question of Dr. King? As I recall, we have a new chair of the science department at the high school, and now 2 of the teachers have resigned. I mean, is there something going on here? Is he?
No, I don't think there's any relationship between that piece. They both resigned for personal reasons.
Okay.
So 9.2 is the perhaps overly optimistic effort that we need to make to set a graduation date, which presently is
June
22nd of
22nd.
June.
Yes.
And I know that Dr. Freeman is trying really hard not to do another day, because that would push us into the Monday of the last week in June. But as I read this memo from our esteemed education commissioner, after April 1st,
set the date.
we can set the date regardless. So it's like after April 1st, so I guess we should probably set a date, don't you think? And
Yes.
that way, we know. So is there a motion that we set the graduation date for Guilford High School at June 22?
Yes.
So moved.
So, as a parent of a graduating high school senior, so moved.
Hard for families to plan.
Yeah, it's just,
It's too much to put on people at this point. Yeah.
right. So the motion's been made, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Well,
So-
let's just hope.
Let's get our meteorologist on the phone and
So-
make sure he's.
So, Mr. Voss, actually,
Yeah.
to clarify then, from what we have read in this document, we can now establish the date. If for any reason, however unlikely at this point, there's another need for a snow day, my understanding of this document is that we have now stabilized graduation, but school would still continue through
right.
to the next
Correct.
Monday.
So-
Okay, and
so
I want to
that's-
say that for our television audience,
Right.
to be clear that graduation now will not move, but the end of school could potentially, if there was a
180th day.
reason
Because
for
we have
another
180,
canceled school day.
So just out of curiosity, what do you think, I don't know, a senior who graduated on that
I
Friday would do?
I am not going to comment on what I think might happen, I just want to clarify
That is
the
true.
law.
No, we are obligated to be open 180 days.
Yes.
And we are open 180 days, and
Right.
so if we have to go to the next Monday, we
We
will.
will.
But the graduation will, under any set of circumstances, will
Has
be
has
that
been
June
solidified.
22nd.
Okay.
Right, okay. Next item on the board agenda is to receive the 2016-17 profile and performance reports. That's a 6-page document that was attached, and I think it's also in your folders.
Yeah.
So, there's some interesting data in here. I don't know if people had a chance to look at it, but we can do one of two things. We can either talk a little bit about this evening, we can carry it over to another meeting, we can do both. Whatever people would want to do. Do people have thoughts or comments about the data?
Well, I'd like to ask Dr. Keene, you're the expert in this area. When you look at this document as opposed to what we had last year, what is this showing you? Is there anything both positive or negative going on here that you think that the board should know about?
So I'll point out a couple things that I think, that we need to work on, as well as some of the things that we have worked on and is showing up.
Okay.
First, the chronic absenteeism is going down significantly, and that is something we've been working on. Principals have been very careful, working with parents, working with students to try, because we know if students aren't here, it's really hard for them to learn. And so chronic absenteeism means a student has missed 10% of the school year or more, which would be 18 days out of the 180 days. 2 years ago, we had 164 students that were chronically absent. Last year, we had 158, so it did go down a little bit, and this year it went down even further to 137 as far as total chronically absent students, for a rate of 4.1%, where the state average is 9.9%. So I think that is a real positive, something we've been working on, and it is showing up in the data. Another thing we've been working on, and a lot of it has to do with how it is recorded, because, the state takes all of our reports that we send in, and then they compile this. And sometimes we are trying to figure out where did the numbers come from. But I think that we are doing better with college and career readiness courses during high school. Our numbers don't look as well as I thought they should look compared to the state. When you look at 75.5% of our 12th graders versus 77.5% at the state level, are taking college and career readiness courses during their high school experience. But a lot of that, too, at the state level, reflects vocational courses. They're considered and
okay.
technical courses. And some schools, for example, the technical high schools, they have 100% because all of their courses fall into that area. So that could look a little bit misleading. And I just wanted to make people aware. Another thing that, as you look through this, and we can, talk about really specific things if you have questions, you can email me or we can talk about it next month. But just be aware that the expenditures section the data is 2 years old.
Right,
So that's 15, 16, that's on page 3.
right.
All the other data is for 16, 17. And this entire report is Connecticut's report card, if you will. So all schools and districts receive this. There are several metrics in here that you can look at around enrollment, absenteeism, suspension, expenditures, achievement, graduation. So a lot of the metrics are here. All of the data, too, is at edsite.ct.gov, so you can compare all the different schools, all the different districts by going onto that site. So those are some of the things. Another piece that I'm really trying to figure out is the college entrance and persistence rate. This source comes from the National Clearinghouse, and last year it was at 82.9%, and this year we're at 78.4%. That's on page 5. And to me, that's not as high as I anticipated it to be. It should be. So I thought our entrance rate was a lot higher than that. So this is for the percentage of students who enter college anytime during the first year after high school. So I want to take a close look at that data because that also includes 2-year programs, 4-year programs. I know we have several students who take a year off after high school, but I don't think it's that many.
I was just going to say, that just doesn't jive with.
Yeah, I agree
Yeah,
with you,
I mean,
Katie. I saw this number and I thought this doesn't
Just does seem a
feel
little-
like
yeah, it
what
doesn't
I
seem a little-
think about.
So I want to check on how that is reported.
Yeah, that does seem, it just
Those are the
seems,
kinds of things I go through. I highlight everything, and then I say, okay, let's talk about this number. Where did this
Yeah, that
come
doesn't
from?
seem-
Why did
Seems
this go
highly
down?
unlikely.
no, it really does. I mean, we sit at graduation every year,
Well-
we read where kids are going, it just doesn't, there are lots of, there are kids that do other things after high school, but that number just doesn't seem accurate, that's all.
But look at the number, the difference between 15 and 16. That's not possible.
Yeah, right.
Correct.
Yeah,
It's
it just
just-
doesn't.
But
We would've
in
had
case
some
you're
more
wondering about the reliability of the data in this, I look at the overall expenditures line, and I'm like, that seems odd, because that says that we're $1,200 per student higher than the state average. That's not what the other data, so I just added these numbers up. The numbers are added wrong.
Well,
So-
it came from Hartford, does that
Well,
surprise you?
I understand that they may want to use numbers that aren't there, but the numbers that are there add up to 16,533 as opposed to what they are reporting at 17,493. So it's off by, it looks like they might have added the 939 into the
Yeah.
below up above, which, it's wrong. It's just the math is wrong.
Yeah, it's still-
So, I would encourage, the moral of the story is before you, check your, what is it, your math, yeah. So, but that's a little embarrassing, frankly. I mean, if the state of Connecticut puts out a report that says that what our expenditures are and they misadded the columns, that's unfortunate. In any event, we can check out.
Those
that.
are just some of the things that I was looking
Okay,
at in
well,
response to your
that's
question.
helpful. That's helpful.
Okay.
All right, anything else on the profile and performance reports? Okay. There are two recommendations from the Policy Committee, a new policy, 5420, regarding exploitation and sexual harassment, and an associated regulation. Do you want to talk about this?
Yes, will do. We brought these to the board last month as a received item. We're now asking the board to act on these recommendations. This is a new policy and a new regulation, although the content of both the policy and the regulation are things that the Guilford Public School System has already enacted. It addresses, again, exploitation, sexual harassment, both in terms of providing students and teachers with education, prevention education, and awareness, but also this policy and this regulation provide guidance for reporting if an event does occur that needs to be addressed. I don't know if anyone on the board has any questions about what's here. Again, as I noted last month, we borrowed heavily from the CABE suggested policy and regulation for these. CABE is always extremely helpful in providing boards of education guidance into the best approach. In this case, and in many cases they've done this before, they will even give us several possible versions to consider and to work with, none of which we have to use, but are often, again, very helpful to guide the process.
I have a question about the opt-out form and the process therein. If a parent is not sure as to whether or not they would want their child to participate, do they have the opportunity to review the curriculum just so that they can make a more informed choice as to whether or not the child participates or not?
That's an excellent question. Mr. Bowden, do you know, or Dr. King, do you know the answer to that question?
We've had the opt-out form for the last 2 or 3 years, and the principals would be communicating when that part of the curriculum would be covered, and like any of our curricular items, parents would have an opportunity to be able to discuss with the principal what that entails.
It's a good question, right? I think the administration is no doubt very willing to provide information for parents who aren't sure whether they want to use that opt-out option or not.
But, you might want to think about on the form saying if you have questions about this, contact the school principal, right?
Yeah, I would think that would be.
There's a form, we don't need to do that here tonight, but I think that's probably not a bad.
No, I'd be happy to do that.
Yeah, no,
Okay, so the policy is mandated by state law, or a policy that's substantively similar to this is mandated by state law. So are we ready to act on the policy first of all, then the regulations?
Sure.
So is that a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion that we, the board, accept this policy 5420 to be put into our policy handbook.
I'll second.
Okay. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So then the regulation?
Yes, and so then I will also make a motion that we act on and support the regulation that accompanies this policy, also 5420.
Second.
Okay. Any questions about the regulation? With the understanding that the form, which is part of the regulation, will be amended to offer information by the principal or meeting with the principal? Okay. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right, thank you. That's helpful to be resolved. Any other board? There's nothing else on the agenda, so committee reports, policy committee, anything else going on?
We have some other things that we're looking at. We, at this time of year, start to kind of gather information for what we have to decide on next. We have a couple of policies we're working on. One of them is an attendance and truancy policy, which we have discussed, but are waiting to finalize so that we can align the policy with what each of our schools will be publishing in their school-specific rules and regulations kind of
We have a
handbook.
non-discrimination update, and we also have Mr. Macente and members of his staff coming to the next meeting to talk about their proposal regarding class rank.
That's right.
Class rank.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, class rank.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah. So that's
yeah.
going to be
Okay.
something that the high school administration is going to come to discuss
Okay.
with us. So, yes, so we have a number of things that that we're talking about, and and we'll be addressing it at our next meeting.
And it's not technically part of the policy committee, but I think we ought to just put it out there that the start time committee is going to meet Thursday here in the library, or here somewhere else? Thursday, 7:30?
All I know is GHS, I assume
Yeah,
here.
we usually meet in, I don't know what room it is, but it's a room right inside the doors here to the left, on this floor.
Is it-
When
does
you
it have
walk
the-
in
is
the
it
front door
Harkness
to the
table
left.
with a large
Yes,
table?
Yeah,
The Harkness
yeah.
room?
that's it.
And I believe it's 6 PM to 8 PM.
Okay, so 6 PM to 8 PM this Thursday that's Dr. Moore's, the committee that Dr. Moore chairs on school start times. Then I think the plan is that Dr. Moore or some member of the committee would present to the Board of Ed informally at the workshop meeting later this month, 2
Correct.
weeks from tonight. And wherever that is, where is that?
I think that's,
It'll be one of the other schools. Okay. And that would be at 7:30. I don't think that there would be any votes by the board on that, because we generally don't do votes at workshop meetings. So there would be some further process after that, once the committee presents or makes whatever statements they're going to make. So that's that process. Operations Committee, is there anything else that you...
Well, we met, obviously went over financials. There's a great new program that's going to be launched in terms of the lunch program for parents, a school lunch calendar program called Meal Viewer. So we'll be on the lookout for that. It's an interactive program that's great, shows nutritional values, and can be updated in real time. So that'll be helpful for Erica, our Director of Food Service. There's a community dinner here Thursday night from 6 to 8 also. So you could stop by the task force meeting and then come to the community dinner. But I think that's it. The Baldwin Windows project will be wrapped up next week during spring break. Is that correct? Well,
Officially, right?
Part of it.
part of
And
it.
then
A
we'll
good
carry on over
portion.
the summer.
A good portion of it. Yeah.
Okay. All right, anything else? Curriculum Committee?
I was not here, unfortunately, last month, so Christine.
So
chaired that meeting.
we met and talked about class rank, decile ranking, and how we want to proceed with that as a district. A lot of districts in area schools no longer report out on decile ranking, on class rank. So it would still be available should schools require that, school admissions require that, but certainly something to look at. The research tells us that that might alleviate some anxiety as well for our students, which is always our top priority. And we got an update on the IB program, which was great and
Yeah, that
running
was great.
really well. So pleased to hear that. They are reviewing applications for next year's program.
And the applications are up, I think, some over this year. Yeah, so, good. And, I should just say on the class rank issue, there are no proposals that are pending
Right.
before the board.
No,
There is nothing that
it's
is...
discussion at this point, just looking at research and seeing what other districts are doing, and that's what, it's just discussion.
Right.
Right. Although, obviously, if they're coming to the policy committee meeting, it may start a discussion at the board level.
Yeah.
Well, it started a discussion at the policy committee meeting
Right,
level.
well,
and
right.
Eventually, it may
Right,
work its
right,
way to the
right,
board or
right,
not.
right,
So,
right.
okay. Town committee liaisons, anything going on pension-wise or fields or anything else? Okay.
Oh, yeah, there's a lot going on relative to the turf field that we're having problems with, but I wouldn't say that there's anything definitive to report. I mean, we did, the town did hire a top-notch consulting firm to examine the situation and try and determine the cause of this problem. They've just begun their work, so we don't have an answer yet.
Okay. All right. Did anybody go to the Learn Board of Directors meeting, the last meeting?
I was scheduled for March 8th, but I was snowed in.
Right,
So I
okay.
couldn't sit.
So we need to try to see if we can do that again. I know that somebody, sent out emails regarding the scheduling of it, so we'll do the best we can to get coverage for that. Do you know when the next meeting
I
is?
volunteered for the May or June one.
No, but I'll have Terry follow up and send out,
Okay.
the schedule for the rest of the year so that everybody would have those dates.
Thank you.
Okay. That's any other committee reports or committee activity that we want to talk about? Okay. Item 11, public questions or comments? Anybody? Please, if you want to just come on up and just give us your name and address, and don't hurt yourself coming up here. That would be bad.
Filibuster. My name's Eric Haskell. I have a third grader at Guilford Lakes. And my comment is, as we perseverate on school start times, I find that I'm nervous that some other things are falling through the cracks. For instance, screen time for children. My doctor says, oh, your child shouldn't get more than an hour of screen time a day. He's getting 5 hours at school of screen time on his little notebook. And also the smart boards are blue light as well. So it's still, if you're in the front row for sure, getting the blue light. I'm also concerned that there are studies that say that children need way more activity than they're getting at school. Braden gets his recess, 20 minutes, and then his twice a week, whatever gym or whatever they're calling that.
Yeah.
And his teacher, who is fantastic, he takes them and runs them around the yard because he says these kids are so spun up they can't learn. So, which is awesome, but the whole school can't do that. You can't and in the winter, they're getting nothing. They're not even going out for recess in the wintertime. So, yes, I think it's important. The studies are about sleep times are pretty rock solid. I get that. But some of the other studies are rock solid as well, and I don't see any lip service given at all to these things that I think are important for our children, especially the little ones who are, they're getting weekend time, 4 hours on their iPads, and then going to school and 5 hours a day on their Chromebooks. Not for nothing, but they don't write. My son doesn't even need to bring a pencil to school. He doesn't write for morning work. He doesn't write in a journal. Nothing. Is that school policy? Well, all the third grade classes are the same. None of them write. So we have him write at home. I have him pick up a pencil and say, Braden, write it. What'd you do today? Write it. Because he's losing hand strength. He's not doing it. I don't think that's I'm not blaming anyone for that. I think that we've just fallen into that. But I think there's got to be some value of being able to write some stuff on paper. I don't know if that's important to anyone. It's important to me, and it's important to my wife, and we try to push that into our child. But besides that, I think that some other things need some attention more than sleeping.
We actually have talked quite a bit about the whole technology issue and the question of the Chromebooks and the question of other PDAs and or whatever smartphones. It is an extraordinarily complicated issue, and because for a lot of reasons. But we are being, like for example, we're talking about the SBAC tests are all on technology now.
This week too.
Yeah, and that is a state requirement. That's not something that Guilford has an opportunity.
I'm wondering. Something silly like they have the blue block glasses. They should. Can't those be just if you're going to be on your computer all day, you have to wear your glasses with.
I guess I would encourage you to talk to the principal at Lake. You said Lakes.
Lakes. But this is Guilford wide.
Well, I will say I substitute for occasionally in the elementary schools just to see what's going on, and it isn't my experience in terms of the amount of screen time kids are getting, but maybe.
Well, I know, like at the next level, these kids are bringing home their Chromebooks.
Oh, sure.
This is. I realize that you're not to not let your child learn technology is hamstringing them. I get that. But, I'm just wondering, is something like the glasses that block out some of the blue light, which keeps kids from sleeping and it disrupts their sleep cycle. That's also pretty rock solid science.
Yeah, I can't say that we've talked about glasses. I don't know.
No, I'm saying I don't know if there is an answer, but some of these things I think should, somebody should say, are we doing our children, yes, we're doing them a service, but are we also doing them a disservice by letting them, is that part of the sleep problem? Because it disrupts your sleep cycle. Is that people looking at a screen for 20 hours a day? I don't know. I mean, I'm sorry, I'm taking up a lot of your
That's
time.
okay.
But, you know,
But I'd encourage you to talk to the principal at Lakes and set up a meeting and say, look, you know, this is what my experience is, and is this consistent with everybody, and is this what we really want as a school?
I know, I hate being the bad guy. You know, that's my school. You know, I don't want to go there
It's not- that's-
and
no,
cause
I don't-
harm. I don't think it's my job to say that this is not healthy for not my child, for all the
I
children.
don't think anybody would interpret that as being a bad guy.
Okay.
All right.
And if I would be very surprised if anybody was defensive
I know.
about that. I mean, the bulk of us here are parents, and we're all parents, I guess, and some of us have kids in school. We all understand. Trust me, we all understand with the issues with screen time right now. It is a struggle that we as a society in the United States are dealing with in every school district in America. And parents, I think the only times I've had real fights with my kids in the last 2 years has been putting down their phone and getting off, right? I mean, it's true. And it's
Same problem.
right. I'm sure you do. And it's not anything that is unique to Guilford or is
No,
unique
absolutely
to me or you. And so, look, we're struggling as best we can to try to balance it. But I'd encourage you to talk to your teacher and the principal and say, look, you know, is this what we want? And I would be very surprised if anybody viewed you as a bad guy or was defensive about it or anything else. We all understand this.
A lot of people think I'm a contractor. All right, Renee, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anybody else with a question or comment? Please.
Hi, good evening. Sarah Kellogg, 335 Boston Street. To let you know, there has been a lot of talk about technology concerns. There is a group called the Shoreline Tech, which is technology education for children's health, about which the board has already been informed, and it's a Facebook group, ironically, but it is a group of citizens who are very concerned about social media, the effects of technology, definitely recognize the many benefits to it, but we're trying to learn how to make friends with it. And there are a lot of medical professionals and psychiatric professionals involved with this group, and just parents, too. Our goal is to work together as a community to educate each other, share ideas, to come up with support for our kids so it's less deleterious. It is truly a huge task, and I think many parents feel like we're all fighting Goliath, but we together can make more of a difference. So I'm happy to share that information with you and anyone else who's interested. So feel free to contact me or Lisa Barbario or Jody Ambrosino. We're all very much interested in making school a real learning place. And I was at the recent Adams PTO, and I pleaded with Dr. Freeman to help us become leaders. I really think we can't keep waiting for other districts to pave the way. School is for learning, and I would love to see it become a district policy that kids, every class, have to put their phones away. They can have it in between classes, but school's for learning, and yes, they do have screen time, but I think in terms of the distraction, there are already enough distractions, I could go on and on, but I won't. But I just wanted to remind people that is available. And I did have a question about the policy about which you spoke. The harassment and exploitation and sexual harassment. I just wondered, is that available for public to view? And
It'll be on our web. It was an exhibit to the minute or the agenda, I think, on our website for this meeting.
Okay.
But it's public. Sure,
Okay.
absolutely.
Yeah,
It's
and
available.
what will happen is it will, now that it's been voted on, it will be incorporated officially into the Board of Ed policy handbook, which is also on the district website. And
Right, right.
I'm sure it won't happen instantaneously tomorrow at 8:30 a.m., but you get my
Right,
point.
right.
Like, it will be
You
incorporated
want mine?
officially.
I have an electronic copy. So if you-
Thank you. And I guess I don't know if I misunderstood. Did you say that some of the curriculum's already been implemented? It's already occurring? Or, thank you so much.
We've always had a sexual harassment policy. It isn't a brand-new policy, but it's just making it come into compliance with a state law that was passed in 2015.
Right.
That required some other details.
I guess I'm curious about what is already being taught to the children at what ages and what levels, because I, as a parent, have never received anything from any of the principals. Yes, around puberty and human development, but I've not received anything around the sexual harassment or abuse piece. And I'm wondering how that is being handled. I feel very strongly it needs to be handled. We need to educate our kids from a very early age using age-appropriate curriculum for that.
So I'm not sure we can answer that. I mean, there are a couple of elementary principals here. I don't know if you can add anything.
Well, I'm Bill Graham, I'm the principal at Kaplan.
Can you come up here, maybe? And I'm sorry to do this to you.
And
See,
I'll
that should teach you to
take the
come to a
answers.
meeting.
Steve Bree. So, and really, it's been, I think, more formalized since 2015. That starting in kindergarten, there's some level of, we would call it more of a safety, personal safety curriculum. It's connected to Aaron's Law, which was the state law that was passed. So we, for the past couple of years, have sent a letter home to parents explaining the curriculum and the instruction that will take place at each of those grade levels. So when we send that letter home, that's attached to the opt-out. So we do have the opportunity for parents to contact us if there's any questions about it. And we can, talk with them personally or whatever it might be. But we use, at the elementary level, a program called Second Steps. And it's age and grade appropriate for each of the, the main safety topics that we talk about, personal safety. And it goes into other things. It goes into gun safety. It goes into, just personal body and those types of things, and strangers and all that type of stuff. So it's pretty comprehensive. It's just a series of lessons at each grade level. It's not a whole year program, but our social workers go into each classroom and maybe a series of 4 or 5 lessons during the course of the year. So
it is the social workers?
Yeah, in our case, it's the social workers. I think at each of our elementary schools, it's mainly the social workers that are going into the classrooms along with the classroom teacher and facilitating the instruction. So.
And can I ask, is the Second Steps being used is it the same curriculum for all of the elementaries?
All the elementaries, yes. Yeah.
The letter went home to, the same letter I believe went home to all, and there's a website link right in the letter, and you can view the pieces of the curriculum.
So that's actually an important point. The letter that goes to elementary parents, anyway, includes a link to a website that has the curriculum on it, so that anybody can access.
How much of it, but there's information for parents.
Okay.
From
Not the complete curriculum, but some portion of the curriculum, so that at least a parent can look
Yeah,
at it and say,
go
I'm
ahead and look at
comfortable
it.
with this, or I have more questions.
Yep.
And I take it, I volunteered you to field any questions from parents. I assume that is not something you have any problem with.
No, not at all.
It's excellent, actually.
Yeah,
Okay.
not at all.
Okay, great.
And we've already done it. Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments? Okay, well, then, I guess it's only 8:20. The neutral principal, obviously, is that Mr. Kazin isn't here, so we were able to get through the agenda much more quickly. You don't think-
I thought I would just comment that the superintendent wasn't.
Well, I didn't notice. I hadn't noticed. Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you very much.